On this episode of the OG and Crab Show, Kutch is talking to the press a lot. We are going to read the tea leaves on if and when there will be firings, and then we're going to prognosticate what probably takes place after those firings. Welcome back to the OG and Crab Show. Two Yinzer dads talking buckos. I'm OG, and on the other camera, in another place, in another time, it's Crab. Hi, Crab.
I'm drinking my Surfside, and it's a delightful beverage. I just wanted to crack this bad boy open for everybody out there. This is the raspberry and vodka. Let's see if we can get on the screen. Ooh, yeah, look at that shiny can. It's out here in my right field right now. I'm going to drink this shit on there. Oh, baby. Oh, it goes down easy, Bob. Woo.
Not an ad.
Surfside, you make a great product. This is not an ad, but you can sponsor this podcast.
Not an ad yet.
And we encourage you to do so. It'll be an ad soon. Let's hopefully it'll be an ad. How can that not be any better than me crushing this thing on air?
Whew. Well, it's better than getting
Nation.
swept by Cleveland. And after
Yeah,
the
let's
Pirates,
talk about Cleveland really quick.
talk about Cleveland.
Yeah, that's a real baseball team, guys. That's what a small market team should be. And they kicked our ass. And we showed like nothing. We showed no life, except for maybe that little comeback at the end of the third game.
Too little, too late. And who works in their front office again? Anyone we know?
Oh, I think so. I think there's this really cool dude. We're going to flash him on the screen doing this little thing that he did. Here he is right now. Boom. There he goes. And his name was Neil Huntington, who was the general manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And under Bob Nutting's leadership, how many games did he win, OG, in 2015?
98 games.
Wow.
I believe that's the most games any Pirates team has ever won in a regular season is 98. Is that? I think that's right.
I mean, it's up. It's got to be up there. I don't have the numbers in front of me. We can get our crack statistician on that later after the show's over. I.e. you. That's huge. It's your job. Pull that number up. But seriously, like that, it's a real thing that can happen here with the proper vision and the proper deployment of funds. You can see a 98 win team. It's possible. And so kudos to the Cleveland Neil Huntingtons for beating the hell out of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Let's keep losing, fellas, because we got to get this front office fired and get out of this thing.
Well, they got to go fly out west and play Mike Trout's Angels and Shohei Ohtani's Dodgers. So, yeah, I think they're going to lose some more games.
I do too. And generational Fishman is great. I love Fishman. He's the only player worth the terminology generational. And I would like to see him hit many home runs against the Pirates pitching staff. And then as far as the Dodgers go, weirdly, sometimes we beat that team, oddly, like in this era. So who knows? Maybe they win. Maybe they win 1 or 2 games over there because that's like a weird Pirates thing to do. But I do think that, as we stated in the last episode, the upcoming schedule is not great for the Buccos. And so it seems like it might be a little hopeless.
Very difficult schedule ahead. So, Andrew McCutchen has been very active with the reporters lately, giving some lengthy interviews about all the things that are going on right now. He talked to Noah Hiles at the PG about his playing time. or lack thereof. And he also spoke with someone at DK Pittsburgh Sports. You saw the article, I didn't, about the reaction in the clubhouse to all the booing and the sell the team chants and so on and so forth. Let's start with the playing time, where he essentially is calling out his manager a little bit, and he softens it a lot in his comments, but it boils down to, come on, man, play me more. I'm here to play. I don't want to be babied. And it would be nice if we could get some consistency in the lineups. I mean, this has been discussed as about as close of evidence as you're going to get that Shelton has lost the clubhouse. Is that fair?
I think he's losing them if he hasn't lost them already. I think there's all this discussion about, well, Andrew McCutchen is 38 years old and, he can't play every day. And I think that's a fair assessment. If you're in the front office or you're one of the coaches, you recognize that the dude is 38. But on the other hand, you have him telling everybody basically that he's conditioned himself and he's ready to play. This is probably his last year. He hasn't said those words exactly, but he's intimating that he doesn't want to go out, like a loser or whatever, like losing, which we all know that he's going to. And he's talking about like, I want to play more games and put me in. And I think it's just strange because McCutchen is the type of guy who really never publicly beefs with people. Like in the front office, he never publicly beefed with Hurdle. There was never any drama around the way he conducted himself. He's from what I've read and what I've heard, I don't think he's like a team leader in the sense he's going to stand on a soapbox in the middle of the clubhouse and maybe give a rah-rah speech, but he leads by example. Everybody knows who he is by now. He's incredibly consistent. He's been in the game for, 10, 15 years or whatever at this point. So, I think it's strange that he's basically telling everybody like, this guy's not going to put me in. Like, I want to play. And honestly, they're like 500 when he's, do I want them to lose? Yes. Okay, so do I want McCutchen to play? No, but that's my hatred hat. If I put on my actual watching the Pirates and rooting for the Pirates hat, which does exist, people, I am wearing a Pirates t-shirt with Chicken on the Hill on it right now, just like my normal attire is Pirates attire. I do root for the team, to contrary to popular belief. Like they're like 500 when he bats plays in the lineup, and he's one of the top 3 offensive contributors to the team. Like, if Shelton and Cherington are trying to save their jobs, they're doing a piss poor job of doing it because like they should be playing their best players all of the time. So this is an insane kind of like weird thing that they're doing, like they're even jerking in, like jerk Davis around. They jerk O'Neill Cruz around. They're jerking Andrew McCutchen around. I mean, Jesus Christ, like just play the best players and let the chips fall where they may. There's no way to kind of like fudge your way out of this crappy rebuild, and no amount of like resting or platooning guys is somehow gonna like manifest some like momentum or mojo or wins or something. Just play your guys. And I think McCutchen, while not saying those exact words because those are crab words, he's like intimating that to some degree, right?
Yeah, and you have Cherington on his radio show talking about playoffs and how he thinks it would be cool to see those lines for the Skeens bobblehead day as lines for a wild card game. And like, man, what planet are you on? Are you watching the same team lose the same games that we're watching? It makes you wonder, is he saying those things on his show so that Bob hears them, or does he really believe them? Because it doesn't match reality. And then you have both he and Shelton are not making the sort of people call them like desperation moves, but they're not acting with any urgency at all. They're not trying to right the ship at all. They're just letting it ride. They're sticking to the plan, sticking to the process. We're going to rest our guys on this date, which we picked 3 weeks ago as the date to rest O'Neal Cruz on a day before a day off. We're going to rest him no matter what's going on, even though we lost the first 2 games in the series and he's our best bat. And like, it's really confounding. It's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't listen to this radio show, but the last radio show I listened to with Charrington, I mean, maybe I'm projecting. I don't know. I don't know the man personally, but he sounded absolutely defeated. He just had a resigned sound in his voice, and it wasn't so different than how like the body language is really bad from Shelton right now. Like in the post game, he's like snippy. He's a little. You could just see he's on edge. So part of me was like thinking, do these guys know they're dead men walking? Because that would explain the lack of urgency. Like if you were told, like, if you thought you were gonna get fired at the end of the year, you know, you might respond like a caged animal and do a bunch of things that are out of character, but you also might just give up like a Pavlovian response. Like you just like, whatever, I don't care. Like let's like senioritis it, you know, you got senioritis or whatever.
Short
So I
timer
can't
syndrome.
tell. Yeah, like they're quiet quitting. I can't tell like what side of the coin they fall on because they both look like they know something we don't know, right? But then again, they don't seem to care. So like, what does it mean? I don't know. They just seem like they don't give a shit.
Yeah, I can't make heads or tails of it. And you know, today was every time there's an off day after a bunch of losing, which is whenever they play, there's always, ooh, it's an off day. That's a good day for some firings. And the firings don't come. So we'll talk later about like when we think these things will actually happen, when it makes the most sense to do it, and will that be when they do it, that type of thing. But before we go, let's continue on with Kutch and discuss a little bit about his comments to DK Pittsburgh Sports about the fans and the booing and the chanting of "Sell the team."
Yeah. So I mean, there is this. Basically the synopsis is that he understands the fan frustration, and of course he's going to understand it because he played on like the 2010 Pirates. They were getting their doors blown off like 20-0, you know, with Lastings Millage in left field. So the dude understands what pissed off fans look like, right? Because that was a bad team, and he's been here long enough to kind of. He's not stupid, you know. He understands the front office. He understands the culture here. It's just interesting because in this like really veiled way, he says, you know, I've been here long enough. I get it. I just hate it for the guys who haven't been a part of it and who haven't been here very long and guys just getting here. And there's a guy like, man, these people seem really upset. So to me, the way I personally read that quote to the media, like if Kutch is saying it to the media, he wants to disseminate it out to other people. The media's job is to be a conduit to the fans and the paying customers and so on. So it sounds like to me like, you know, a veiled reference to like, you know, yelling "sell the team" isn't going to help Jack Sawinski because he wasn't here in 2007. He wasn't here in 2010. He wasn't here for Aramis Ramirez. He wasn't here for the 5-year rebuild. He wasn't here when Jack Wilson got bullied in the locker room, you know. So don't take it out on these guys because all they do is beat themselves up. To me, that's the way I'm reading that kind of statement from him. So on one hand, I'm like, all right, that's cool, Kutch. Like, I'm with you, brother. Like, that sounds like a rational plan. On the other hand, I am an incredibly pissed off middle-class father of 2 who paid $200 to take his kids to the game and not have any, you know, they don't give a shit. They're just there like, you know, picking their nose and staring off into space. And I, you know, got to pay your salary and watch this crap. And I'm pissed. I'm mad. And so, you know, I think we should be booing more. We need more energy because we're not going to boycott Bob Nutting out of town. The best we can do is scream "sell the team" loud enough that maybe he realizes, well, this isn't working, and he at least changes direction in, you know, we get a fresh voice and we can move on. So on one hand, I empathize with Andrew McCutchen, and I don't want, you know, booing to adversely affect some of these players' careers here and in the future. But like on the other hand, I don't give a shit. Just boo them. Hey, this team sucks. OG, like, what are we holding back for?
We know that Bob was at these games. We know that he was at the home opener, walking the rotunda and hearing very personally from the fans he was walking past. And we know that he was at the game on Saturday because
They don't have an elevator in there for him to take.
he makes some choices, man. And he had to have been there on Saturday because at least as the story goes, as he's driving in and seeing the lines for the bobblehead, he told he according to reports, he told the front office to make sure that everybody gets a voucher if they don't get a bobblehead, which to me sounds like a there was that really like driving in he had that aha moment, I should do something that's good PR, or is this the best that Pirates PR can come up with to try and salvage something after the terrible PR several weeks that they've had with all of the stories we talked about on the last show? Supposedly he was driving in, so I assume he was at the game. He would have heard the chants because they had to mute the mics on the broadcast so that we couldn't hear them at home. So he's got to know, he's got to be noticing something, right? If he's going to the games and he's hearing the chants and he's seeing the losing, it's like at what point does he get fed up with all of that and make a move? So will be
To finish the McCutchen
yeah.
quote really quick, it says here, you got guys who don't play every day showing up in the lineup with that cloud over them. It becomes a challenge. The game is challenging in itself, but when you're dealing with a lot of fans who seem to be fed up the way that things are going, it makes it a little more challenging. All we can do is our best as a club to try to block it out and to try to win the ball game, but I cannot control how they feel. I just understand. Good job, McCutchen. You really, threaded the needle there to play. You're like Mac. I play both sides, so I come out on top. But the point is that, he's doing a better job of Pirates PR than Williams is doing right now, which is astounding and another indictment on Williams. And as far as Bob goes, like, I think it's just Occam's razor. He probably drove up and was like, duh. Whoa, there's a lot of people here. Wow. Oh, they're not going to get their bobbleheads. Huh. Oh, look, that little guy doesn't have a bobblehead. That kid should have a bob. Like, I think Bob is that, like, he does Pirates charities. He seems like an affable fellow. I don't think it's that, like, sinister where he's like, yes, free PR. It's my chance to
Probably
the Empire
not.
Strikes Back. Like, I think he, right? Do you really?
I'm giving them way
the dude
too
doesn't
much
seem like
credit to
he's
think
like,
they cooked that up ahead of time. That's a good point.
I mean, it's like Schrodinger's nutting. He can't be, right. He can't be completely inept, but like, coming up with this stuff ahead of time. Like, I just think he saw a big line. He saw Tommy Pham standing out front for his DoorDash. It was probably like, Tommy, can I get you in? Like, why don't you walk with me? They probably walked in together.
And not let
We
him
put
in?
Tommy Pham on the screen.
Can we leave him outside with his 13 WRC plus?
It's bad. That's that. I mean, I'm just interested the fact that the guy is talking to the media, which is always something in and of itself. And so the playing time thing is interesting to me because, the guy wants to play. He's 38 years old. Send him out on a high note. Run his ass into the dirt. He don't care. He's telling everybody, I don't give a shit. Play my ass. I worked my ass off to condition myself to get ready for this farewell tour. And then he goes and he has to do PR for the Pirates. I mean, and he's the only guy who can hit. Like, what can't he do? He's doing everything. Might as well make him the manager, too.
Ride him hard, put him away wet. Love that expression.
Amen. It's a good one.
Well, let's read those tea leaves, like we said, and muse a bit about when we think these guys are going to get their walking papers. When do you think Shelton will be excused from being the manager?
I mean, Are you asking if what Crab the GM would do or what Ben Charrington the GM will do? Because
What do
it's
you
two
think
different
Ben's going to
things.
do? When do you think it'll finally happen? Because it's going to happen, right? There's not a scenario, like, let's agree that there's not a scenario where he continues to be the manager through the season and into next year.
Okay, let's go back in our DeLorean, Marty, and go back to the future because I'm reading the 2024 article here where Ben says about Derek Shelton. I believe he can help us towards winning in 2025. Charrington said, I believe he does a lot of the aspects of the job very well and at a high level. I believe he works as hard as any manager in the game, and I certainly believe he cares as much as any manager in the game. Doesn't care enough to play McCutchen, but okay. And can't keep a stable lineup, but all right. Like all of us, certainly including me, he has targets that he needs to improve on, and I believe he is fully aware of those. I believe he's committed to working on those, and I believe he understands the team needs to ultimately respond to him. And so we'll go into 2025 together, accountable together. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the work ahead. Vote for Ben Charrington. I mean, honestly, that's what he said in 2024. So, do I think he's going to fire him in the middle of the season? No, I don't. I think he already told us what he's going to do. I think that Ben is almost imperceptibly slow in his decision making and, turtle-esque in this way that he's not going to change his mind. He's on his little path. He's walking towards it. He's accountable. He said in front of the media, we're accountable together in 2025. He vouched for this guy, and I just don't think he's going to fire him. I really don't. So I think at the very end of the year, to answer your question, they'll get their walking papers at the end of the year. There's going to be no Black Monday.
You don't think there's going to be you don't think there's any chance that Bob fires Shelton himself? Isn't that how it went with Hurdle? Didn't Bob make that call? Because he retained everybody else, at least initially. It was the last home game of the season in 2019, and Bob personally dismissed Hurdle, as I recall.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably accurate. That's my memory of it as well. I don't, have that in front of me, but do I think that Bob will step in? Well, that's why I'm rooting for everybody to yell, sell the team, and loud enough to get it picked up so Greg Brown can hear it, because maybe that changes it. Because so far, the plan is to be accountable together in 2025. But if we yell sell the team loud enough that Andrew McCutchen is so pissed off he has to talk to the media about it, maybe it gets it through Bob's thick skull that the shit's bad and we suck and got to do something, Bob. But I don't believe that Bob is going to do those things. I think Bob is just as something that he says. Bob is laser. I'm laser focused and all that. He says things like that. So I just don't think Bob's going to get involved like that.
I think that we're going to see a Memorial Day dismissal. I think they're going to do the thing where you follow the old baseball axiom is that you don't know anything until Memorial Day. And there will have been such a disastrous May, just looking at the schedule. All of the teams that they face in May are vastly superior to them, or at least able to beat them and take series from them. They might win like 5-6 games in the entire month. They could be close to 20 games under by the end of May. And I
Here's
think
a quote for you, OG.
Okay.
Go. I want to be Bob. I'm
Yeah.
Bob. I'm answering you right now.
Yeah,
I'm not cutting you off.
Lay it on me.
Here it is. Ben understands how important this season is, Nutting said. Shelty understands how important this season is. I have high expectations this year. The organization knows we have high expectations, and I know the fans have high expectations. To me, that aligns directly with accountable together.
I mean, I'm looking at this schedule, man. In May, Well, at the end of April, they're wrapping up a series against the Cubs and then the Padres, and then they go to St. Louis and they host the Braves, who have been bad to start the year, but they're good. They'll find a way to turn it around against the Pirates. Then they go to the Mets, then they go to the Phillies, and then they host the Reds, who they can and should beat, but also get swept by. And then 4 games against the Brewers, and then they go to the Diamondbacks, and they go to the Padres. Every single one of those teams can sweep them. Every last one of them. They could go 0 for May. They really could. Now, baseball, that doesn't happen in baseball, but my goodness. This team right now, against all those teams, that's bleak, man. And they're already in a hole. So I think we're going to get to Memorial Day. Well, we're going to get through May. After May, when we get to that 1st of June, after the Padres series, I guess the 2nd of June, they're going to have a very, very bad record, and there is an off day on Monday, June the 2nd. So that's going to be my prediction. That's going to be my prediction.
Great.
June 2nd, Monday, June 2nd is when Shelton is dismissed.
Part of my role is and needs to be filtering out anything that distracts us from laser focusing on the most important things that will make change in the organization. That's changed through the last 20 years, whether that's building the Dominican Academy, investing in Bradenton, rebuilding the draft. We did a lot of things that helped us get to 13, 14, and 15. You see a lot of the same thing now in different areas. Building out the analytics team, making sure the players are getting support. We changed every corner of this organization through the offseason to make sure we're providing players with the support they need. When I see the plane banner, I'm reminded that we need to be focused on what we will deliver and the results that the fans expect. I don't think it's selling the team. I think it's executing what we're focused on. Does that sound like a guy a month ago who has his mind wrapped around firing his front office?
No, but a month ago, he still had confidence in what they had been working on behind the scenes. He described it all right there. He believes in all of the stuff that they're doing that we don't see, and thinks or has been sold the idea that that stuff, if you just trust it long enough, will eventually yield quality baseball on the diamond. Waiting around until the end of September to make a decision on that stuff, if you're having a White Sox 2024 White Sox season where you're on pace to lose the most games ever, like, you don't think that's gonna have him make a little mental pivot? I think it will.
I mean, no, I don't, because I think this dude is almost preternaturally like obsessed with being, milk toast. I think that this dude is like just not going to Steinbrenner his way through this front office, even though Yinzers want a blood sacrifice, and I deserve a blood sacrifice. I deserve this, OG. You deserve this. Anyone listening to this deserves a blood sacrifice at this altar. It needs to be Cherington, Williams, and Shelton. They need to go. But I just don't think Bob sees that way. I think at the end of the year, he will do some kind of measured, internal review or whatever dumb shit business people say they do. And here's the thing. If I'm Cherington, I fire Shelton just to try to save my own ass, to make a business case for myself. But Cherington, again, and we've discussed Cherington every episode, he just doesn't have that in his DNA. He just doesn't. Not to Farrell Boston, to go back to Farrell in that era, he didn't have it then. He stayed with Farrell, got sick, he had cancer. He never, I'm not advocating firing a guy like that or anything. That's not my point. But he stayed with Farrell, to the very bitter end. He was always with him and Farrell. So, through the losing and stuff, Ben never wavered from him. So I just can't see that this is going to be any different. And, what difference does it make, though? That's my question. Would you get Donnie Kelly in here? And somehow this team goes on a winning streak with Emmanuel Valdez and his red dots that everybody says he's so great on the internet, got a bunch of red dots on Baseball Savant. The dude's a career minor leaguer. What are we going to, Jack, you get Johnny Kelly in here and Jack hits 30 home runs. I don't see that happening. Do you?
No, probably not. But I think if you had here is devil's advocate, the scenario where dismissing Shelton and naming Donnie Kelly the interim skipper makes a difference, even if it's a dead cat bounce. You you have Donnie Kelly understanding that he's expected to do things a little differently because his boss just got fired for doing things his boss's way. So he's going to bring some consistency to the lineups. He's going to say, screw it, I'm going to play the best guys every day until they get hurt, and then they can sit on the bench while they're hurt, and we'll see what happens. And he'll do the whole Brian Snitker Braves approach of just let's just run our best nine out there. That could that could yield something if there is some truth to the idea that players really crave that consistency and want to play every day and get a rhythm going. I don't know if it necessarily matters for Enmanuel Valdez or Alexander Canario or any of these sort of like waiver claim pickup guys that are filling in for all the injured guys like Gonzalez and Horwitz, etc. But, you know, there could
Valdez was
be.
starting to swing the bat a little bit better, said McCutchen. It's hard to put something on players who maybe haven't had the opportunity to play and contribute in 3 or 4 days. And then he's out there and he's playing and he's expected to have a good game. It's not that easy, you know, quote Andrew McCutchen. So, you know, maybe I'm just giving you some, you got your best guy telling the media like consistency is key here. And yeah, maybe, no, this is not McCutchen saying this, is me saying this. This is Crab Nebula Noodleman Esquire saying Valdez sucks. But like maybe he goes on a Linsanity run, but we're never going to know if he can't get playing time, you know.
I think
So
that's what
maybe
I'm
Donnie
saying.
Kelly,
Like you could
yeah.
get that's that dead cat bounce concept is that you could get a mirage of good baseball like we got last June. And so you can concede, like, say they do what I say and they dismiss Charrington after he gets off the plane from San Diego and does not and goes and collects his things from the office. They have a homestand and it's under Donnie Kelly and they have this big successful homestand. That could happen. Now, water's going to find its level and Linsanity runs end and dead cat bounces are called that for a reason. But I could imagine after a dismissal there being a brief period of like, wow, what a difference that made. Because maybe at that time you've called up Bubba Chandler. Maybe at that time you've called up Nick York and you're not playing Tommy Pham all the time. I don't know. Spencer Horowitz should be back by then. There's all kinds of like little marginal odds and ends that can potentially look like they're making a difference, if only briefly. And I could see that again, devil's advocate, not saying it will happen, just saying it could. And, you know, we'll see. So that's our prediction on Shelton. You say he's going to last the year. I say he's going to get walked out of the building the first Monday of June.
The only thing about that is just not to, well, we can move on here, but just a quick rejoinder to that. Like essentially it's like, I just don't get if you're Charrington though, you know, if you're still in, like if I'm Charrington, I fire Shelton to save my job and hope the dead cat bounce happens. And then I can buy myself another year, maybe 2 with Bob Milquetoast nutting. But like, you know, essentially you're just swapping out one guy with the same, like I would assume if Derek Shelton hired Don Kelly to be his right-hand man, they must share the same managerial philosophies. So, I mean, I don't know if that's really, you know, what this team needs is like an outside perspective to come in here, a way different managerial philosophy. To your point, yeah, maybe he changes his methods because like he just saw his boss get fired, but like deep down, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I don't see that.
We'll see. So that's the predictions on Shelton. Very different though, I think, is thinking about what happens to Charrington, because you've already stated that you think they both last the year. I agree. I think Charrington does last the year because I really don't see any benefit at all to dismissing him before the end of the season? Like, what do you get from that? You're not like, I've heard people say that they don't want him having the choice of another single transaction. They don't want him making another decision about a DFA or selecting a contract or optioning a player or trading a player. They don't want any, or drafting. Like, the draft would be under his purview if he's kept around all summer. I think that the draft is almost like something he must delegate a lot of, if not most of. I'm sure he has final say on things. I'm sure he has a lot of input. But if you were to fire him on June 2nd as well, for instance, the draft is like a little over a month after that, and you've already made all your plans. You've already got your board built, and there's very little change to be done. So if you didn't want him drafting anybody, you probably didn't want him scouting anybody. You should have fired him last winter, but you didn't. So you're going to
Correct.
let it go. You're going to let it ride, and you're going to let him finish out the year for the sake of continuity, so that whoever you do replace him with has something to work with. It's not really clear exactly how much of the house gets cleaned if you are getting rid of the GM after this season. Are you also getting rid of his lieutenants? Are you getting rid of the front office folks that he's been hiring and getting a fair amount of applause for hiring recently? Or is this going to be like when he was hired, and most or all of the people who were here after the dismissal of Huntington and company were just kept on, and many of them didn't get moved out of their roles, as we previously discussed, until only in the last year. So I think I agree with you there, that Charrington sticks around the whole year regardless of how badly they do. And then the question is there any chance that Bob sees some kind of potential or some kind of reason to keep Ben a seventh year? Is there any possibility he doesn't lose his job at the end of the season?
Surfside Vodka. Yeah, I mean, this kind of stuff is going to get him fired. This right here, sponsorship break. Um, Love, it's 100 calories.
Well, that would be Travis, not the GM, right? That's the business guy.
I think they're all going to go. They're all going to go. Um, I think Ben stays because I can't see any logical reason to fire him in the middle of the season. Ostensibly, you fire him in the middle of the season. All you're doing is putting one of his chiefs of staff, so to speak, into a role where they're going to execute the plan that was already agreed upon when Charrington was the general manager. Like you said, the board's already built, scouts have already scouted. So if they had a particular player that they wanted in the first round, Kevin Graves or what's his name, Sanders, Steve Sanders is the other guy in there, and all those guys, they'll just, I mean, they're not going to suddenly pivot, so they're going to do what so why not just let him just do what he's going to do? He's already shown he doesn't have a proclivity to do a Chris Archer trade. I don't believe a Chris Archer trade exists inside of him to save his job, or else we would be seeing more aggressive like roster moves now. We would have seen him say to Shelton, like, stop moving dudes around. We have to win, put them in a position, and let's try to do something here. We're going to get fired. So, he's not directing Shelton to change his ways. He doesn't seem to have any urgency. I think it doesn't make any sense to fire him in the middle of the season. It just, and plus, every single person you'd want to hire is under contract in working for another organization right now. So it's not like you're going to have a pick of people to bring. It just doesn't work like that. At
Yeah,
the
I
end of the
agree.
season, like the time to fire him was at before the Accountable Together press conference, where he said he went out and he asked Bob for Accountable Together in 2025. So that's his way of saying, I told Bob, give me one more year. Bob agreed. Bob said, this is a really important year. We just read the quote. That's Bob speak for saying they're fucked if they don't win. He's aware that we're yelling sell the team. Like I think it is all adding up. I think the natural outcome of this is that nothing is changing. Nothing is changing. They're messing with the lineup still. Guys still aren't developing. So it's clearly building. So it seems like its natural place to crescendo is at the end of the season, and that gives Bob and hopefully not Travis Williams the ability to go out there and find a true Major League Baseball, assistant GM from another organization to come in here. That person is going to want to bring in all their lieutenants, all of their scouts, all of their analytics people. This season is just cooked. So I think Cherington stays the whole year. And, if he makes a trade for like a guy like Nick York, like that kind of trade, that doesn't bother me. If they make some kind of like middling, like Brian De La Cruz type of trade, like, okay, that's fine. Those aren't like going to hamstring the organization for decades to come.
They're not trading
for years to come.
Keller at the deadline.
No, I can't see that. I can't see that happening. No.
You could see the 1 year. I mean, unless something, you could see like a Heaney.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm perfectly okay with Cherington trading Heaney for a lottery ticket, trading Pham for a bucket of cash in baseballs because he's not going to get you anything, and just calling up young kids and going from there. Like that's how this season's going to play out. And at the end of the season, Bob fires him. I can see that happening very clearly. Yes, unfortunately, we're going to just waste another Skeens year, which is exactly what we proselytized on our very first fucking episode. It's like coming to fruition. Good job, OG and Crab.
So Ben is like that captain in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies where there's that slow motion effect shot, and he's just like staring off into the distance, striding down the stairs as his ship just disintegrates around him and the cannonballs are whizzing past his face, and he's just accepting his fate and saying, well, there's nothing left to do but walk into the fire. So that's what we think will happen. Now let's get back in our DeLorean and go even further into the future. After Ben Cherington is dismissed, after Shelton is dismissed.
This is my favorite.
Let's go forward in time, and we're not going to make a guess about who they're going to hire because that's practically impossible. Let's enjoy ourselves a little bit and pretend that they hire somebody competent who wants to throw their weight around a little bit, and let's speculate about what that new GM will do in his first off season running the Pirates. Who are we getting rid of?
In the first off seson?
In the first, over the first winter. So at the end of the season, free agents will lose to free agency, IKF. If he's still a Pirate by then, Andrew Heaney.
Yeah, Andrew McCutchen might trade IKF. I could see it too.
Maybe. But these are guys who, if they're not traded, are free agents anyway. IKF, Andrew Heaney, Kutch, Tommy Pham, if he's not DFA'd or traded, Caleb Ferguson, the reliever, Adam Frazier, if he's still around, and Tim Meza. Those are the free agents at the end of this year. There will be 3 guys remaining on guaranteed money contracts. Key Brian Hayes, making $7 million a year at that time because his numbers shift around year to year. Brian Reynolds, whose price tag goes up in 2026 to $14.25 million. And Mitch Keller.
That's a lot of Surfside to buy with $14 million. Whose price goes up a lot of Surfside.
Just shy. A nice car shy of $17 million. So those are the 3 guaranteed money guys. You will also have David Bednar approaching his final year of arbitration, and he's making $5.9 million this year and not doing a good job at that. You'll have Dennis Santana headed for ARB 3 and seems to be the heir apparent to the closer role, maybe kind of sorta. Those are the 2 guys who are going into ARB 3. Everybody else is going into ARB2 or ARB1 or still pre-ARB. O'Neal Cruz will be ARB1 next year. Johan Oviedo will be ARB2. So will Bailey Falter, Colin Holderman, Justin Lawrence, and Joey Bart. So
this team is like ready to blow itself up already.
And who goes under this new GM next November and December and January?
I mean, for me, I think oh my God. I mean, because I can't like rationalize keeping all these guys if we're trading like the core. Here's the thing. The core sucks. Like Reynolds and them are not the impact core we wanted. Like the Orioles have or whatever. We've talked about that. So it's like, all right, so you trade Reynolds and Keller, but then like a Cruz, like you got Cruz and we're on a 100-loss team. Like why even keep Cruz? If there's a market for Cruz, you should have looked into doing. So it's like, it starts to open up a whole can of worms for the next guy. And if the next guy's got that big juicy Harvard MBA that I hope he has, and he worked for the Guardians and the Rays and the Astros, like I hope he did. He's got a big ass brain on him. He's going to see this and be like, well, this is I don't want these guys. He's not going to have the emotional attachments to these players that we do, number one, and I use the analogy of like Huntington, like when he came in here, he blew up the best outfield in baseball, which was Nady, Bay, and McLeod. So it's like, Charrington came in here, traded away all his guys, all the Huntington guys, Bell, Musgrove, and all them guys.
Marte, Taillon.
So I just see it like Marte, Taillon. I just see a whole teardown coming because it's hard to rationalize keeping. What do you keep? O'Neal Cruz? You non-tender Jack Sawinski? You keep Bednar, I don't think you offer him a contract if you can't get something for him. Like you can't trade him, right? Like what do you do with him? Like what's he on? You said ARB3?
He's going to be ARB3. So if they don't trade him at the deadline, they would have to consider tendering him and then trading him as a tendered.
Okay, so maybe if I'm the GM, I do that.
Player.
Fine, I'll do that. I'm the new GM, Crab GM. Crab does that and hope to get some value and trade him, flip him. So I'll tender him.
There's Dennis Santana, who might actually be the closer. Right now, he's only making $1.4 million. So he's if he is indeed a closer and stays consistent all year and shows that he can be at least a leverage reliever with some consistency, he has probably more value in trade than Bednar. Even though Bednar has the 2 All-Stars, he's also got 2, assuming that he continues to scuffle, he'll have 2 years, most recent years, of poor performance at a high price versus Dennis Santana, who is all of a sudden closing ball games at a low price. So he might be pretty valuable on the trade market. And what do you need him for? He's going to be gone after 2026 anyway. So he's kind of like a high value trade piece.
I guess the thing we haven't even talked about is like, what do we do with the Skeens window? Like now this is like a full on,
there it is.
national
the Skeens window.
I can't
that's the argument that I got in on over on the NS9 Discord where you and I met. And I was arguing with basically the room that
I saw it was like 300 in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just me.
I was watching. I was like, oh, Jesus, he's dying.
Persians, yes. I was winning, though. I was winning because I'm right. So I was making.
What's our show? We're always right.
Of course. Isn't it great how there's nobody on here to rebut us? We can just shout into the void and there's nobody to argue with us.
I love it.
Correct. So I was
good.
making the argument that everybody that they would essentially be doing a teardown, and you can, if you don't like the phrase teardown because it sounds too defeatist, like I don't care what you call it, but here's what they're going to do. They're going to trade Keller. They're going to trade Reynolds. They may or may not trade Hayes because like he's actually not that expensive, and maybe they want to keep like one guy around that they extended as like I don't know. What doesn't matter. All these other guys become free agents. They trade Bednar. They trade Santana. They might even trade Joey Bart. because they have two other catchers who are cheap and on pre-arb contracts. They don't trade Paul Skeens because nobody will give you his actual value until he is at least in arbitration, and probably not until ARB 2 at the earliest in 2028 would you even start to be hearing offers on Paul Skeens that would match his actual value as a player. So he's not going anywhere. But all of these other guys that are on the roster right now are fair game, especially if they're making money. And you've got a new GM coming in so this is the thing that I caution when everybody is just pounding the table for we've got to fire everybody now. They're doing a terrible job. Yeah, they are, but do you understand what's going to happen when they get replaced? They're not going to keep all of your favorite players on the team and like replace Tommy Pham with a $30 million outfielder. They're not going to replace Adam Frazier with a $15 million utility player. You're not getting these excellent build around Skeens pipe dreams that you're wishing for. You're going to get a teardown. You're going to have all those guys I just listed shipped out for, it's going to look like the Marlins last year is what it's going to look like.
I would agree.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I would agree with. It's a shame, but I don't, this needs to happen because I mean, there's like we talked about last episode, there's just no way to buy your way out of this. And I just can't see this rebuild has been so bad and so flawed, and Cherington seems so bad at doing this. You asked me earlier if there's a world where, maybe Bob gives him a 7th year. The only way I can see it is if like somehow Bob thinks like, and I don't think Bob thinks like this, mind you. I don't, to be clear. But maybe if he did, somewhere deep in there, he thinks, well, I don't want to do this because I have like these like really good pitchers. It's the only thing I could think that could save, his job. But yeah, I think if another guy comes in here, he's going to want to do his thing. And I would agree with everything you said. And I don't think there's a way to retool this either. Unless if you trade like Keller and Reynolds, then maybe if you get like pre-arb players and some scratch off lottery tickets like that. And I mean pre-arb players that are already playing on another team, right? Maybe there's a way to like just insert those guys, and you hope the youth movement can be like a full.
That's really hard to find a match for. Now you're talking about getting Colin Moran back for Garrett Cole because he's ready to play right now. It is though. That's the problem. But you're not going to get back a good pre-arb player for Mitch Keller or Brian Reynolds. So I think I want to address the whole you can't do a teardown when you have Paul Skeens argument.
Lay it on me, baby. Give me that righteous rage. Go.
Of course you can, because Paul Skeens plays 20% of the games. As good as he is, he plays less than a backup catcher. He doesn't affect enough ball games to build around. If you have Paul Skeens and Bubba comes up and is Paul Skeens Jr., and Jared Jones comes back and his UCL isn't already hamburger and he can go back to doing what he did the beginning of last season. Well, now you've got a young, cheap, potent rotation, not just a guy, but a rotation. At the moment, you don't have that. You have some starting pitching that is performing reasonably well with no offense backing them up. And we saw last year that wears down, and you're left with Paul Skeens pitching all by himself most of the time in a losing effort because nobody's hitting. And you're building around a guy who plays 1/5 of the games? That's not enough to build around. That is an ace, one ace. surrounded by some decent starting pitching. We don't know if Bubba's going to be Paul Skeens Jr. We don't know if Jared Jones is ever going to do again what he did the beginning of last year when he lit the world on fire for like 2 months. So we don't actually have this amazing pitching depth of quality that you can just say, all we need is like 2 or 3 average hitters. So we should keep Brian Reynolds, and we should definitely not trade O'Neill Cruz. We should extend O'Neill Cruz, in fact, and we'll keep going with Joey Bart because he's our power hitter. And well, maybe now we're getting into the maybes. Maybe Henry Davis will figure it out, or maybe this, or maybe Nick Gonzalez will come back from injury and finally find some consistency. There's a lot of maybes. It's the same maybes that we were talking about over the winter, and I just don't see it. Like Paul Skeens, yes, it's a shame that they're going to waste him, but they're going to waste him. That is a foregone conclusion at this point. They are going to waste Paul Skeens because they don't have the bats coming up through the system, and they don't have the money to go buy real bats. Like they could go out and get like okay, better than Tommy Pham hitters. Sure. Like they could go out and spend $15 million on a guy and get that's what Anthony Santander is making. Now, there's a lot of deferrals. There's a lot of reasons why I don't think the Pirates would be in the conversation for that deal. But if we're just going strictly by what he makes each year, the Pirates can afford Anthony Santander and his presently 83 WRC plus. Like he's a below average hitter right now.
That's bad. That's bad.
Now, that's not to say that it's also like April 20 something. And so like he can get better. Like he can be a slow starter. That's not really what he is as a player. That doesn't determine his value at, over the course of his contract. But if you're not getting a guy who can walk in the door and just nail down being a 125 OPS plus hitter.
What was his WRC plus real quick?
Santander, I looked it up the other day. It's in the low 80s. But
I mean,
Tommy Pham is like 13. So like,
I know, but like IKF has an 83 WRC plus right now. So what a smart move by Ben Cherington. Look at that.
So if you're looking for a comp in terms of offensive production at this time of year to Anthony Santander, who would have totally fixed this roster, I have been told many times by many people on the internet, you're talking about IKF. Is IKF fixing this roster right now? He's got the same.
Is IKF worth $90 million over 5 years?
I think not. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's like they're not going to be able to buy their way out of this. We talked about that at length in the last show. And they don't have the stuff coming up on the farm. So, yeah, they're going to tear down. It's going to be just like the Marlins last year. Paul Skeens is basically priceless right now. Nobody's giving you what he's worth for 3 more years at least. So, yeah, he's going to wither on the vine. They're going to waste him. That is going to be the drumbeat out of the Jeff Passons and the Ken Rosenthals and every national baseball talking head and every commenter on baseball Reddit and everybody on Twitter and Blue Sky or whatever is just going to be lamenting how the Pirates are wasting Paul Skeens because they didn't go out and spend like the Dodgers, but they can't spend like the Dodgers. Now we're doing last week's
They're wasting him now.
See the circles that we're chasing our tails in? It's crazy.
They're wasting him now. It's all the same thing anyway. Here's why. I just want to say this before we wrap up. You know what's just popped in my head earlier today was the fact that, like, we've seen a lot of rebuilds, and it's like Cherington kept Reynolds and Hayes and all these like Neil Huntington guys and signed them long term. Instead, he should have flipped them and gotten value out of them. And we talked about this a little bit last show, but it just dawned on me today that like that would be the equivalent of Neil Huntington coming in here and signing McLeod and Bay to long-term deals, and then not having that. Remember how I used to talk about financial flexibility? In retrospect, 10 years later, I realized what the man was talking about. It's the ability to go grab your Andrew McCutchens when one falls into your lap. And because a lot of our money is tied up in these very nice players, but for the Pirates, not what you need kind of guys, we just, even if you wanted to sign Paul Skeens to some kind of like, just buy out the RBers and like offer him 1 year, like every fan says they want to do. And maybe he's interested. Maybe he was interested. He might not be now, but like, or whatever the case may be. Or you want to do it with Cruz. It's like, we don't even have the money to do that till we start tearing these guys down, tearing it down and trading these guys. And then you're circle back to why bother signing them anyway. It's just, Neil, if you're listening, you were right. Neil was right. Bring back Neil Huntington. The next GM, Neil Huntington, part 2. He'll be like the Billy Martin of the Pirates. He'll just keep getting rehired. Bob has the chance to do the funniest thing in the world. Just bring back Neil, please.
Surely that bridge is burned and completely demolished. Well, that's probably a show. Let's call that a great show. And another ray of sunshine from us, right? We're telling everybody that they're gonna tear down the team after everybody gets fired, and there's no hope, and we're gonna waste Paul Skeens. What else? Is there anything to be happy about? I'm struggling.
Surfside. Surfside is the official beverage of the OG and Crab show.
Please make your checks.
That's something to be happy about. It was really good.
OG, don't tell Crab that you sent me the check. Well, that's our show for this episode. I'm OG, he's Crab. We're two Yinzer dads, and we're sad about the Pirates, but we're glad you listened to us. And before Crab
please
tells
like
you
and subscribe.
That he doesn't care.
Go ahead. I jumped the gun. I jumped the gun every time. I'm so excited to tell him. Go ahead.
I want to make sure everybody knows that we finally figured out how to get ourselves listed on the Apple podcast directory and the Spotify podcast. We have an audio feed. If you want to catch us on your favorite podcast player, you can use any podcast player you want because it is a properly formatted XML feed. Yes, I am a nerd like that. So please do like and subscribe.
Good job, you dork.
Or don't.
You nerd.
And that's our show for tonight. Bye-bye.
Bye.